Welcome to Colney Talk Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. You're listening to Colney Talk Podcast, the bite-sized show. I'm your host, Alex. First-time guest, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. And to my returning listeners, glad to have you back. On this bite-sized show, I talk a little bit about Arsenal game and then pick out my top 3 Arsenal players who I think were great in the game, and one player I consider the other guy who just had a poor game or not good enough. I don't think many of us fans had gotten over the loss from the last game against Brighton. And to add to that, this loss that we just endured from Nottingham Forest was just beyond deflating. It's hard on every Arsenal fan, so I'm not just going to pile on and make more misery out of this. It's a difficult situation. We've had our hopes. It's a hope that kills us, but there isn't any other way to be alive in this situation, to enjoy the rise of this club and everything that they're trying to do in terms of rebuilding. So when we speak of these disappointments, there is a different level, at least from what I tried to talk about or describe, where it's just not acceptable or something that we just really don't want to go back to. So this loss, it's just one of those in the game, in this season, but looking at it from a bigger picture perspective, it's really disappointing. There's so many things that factor into it, but I think the way that team had created this big chance, this big opportunity, the way that they've done everything to get themselves to this position really made us want to ask for more, want to demand for more, with success, with standards. But it's never going to be perfect, but we just have to deal with that. As far as this game goes, it was just really interesting in terms of the rotation, air quotes here, for the starting back line. Ben White slotting in for center half, Thomas Partey in right back, and Kivior as left back. Very interesting lineup here, and I think to me at this situation is to try to make the best out of the quality players in positions that we know we lack depth. I wonder why Tierney didn't start. It was just very interesting. Maybe they wanted something more. And it was not a bright start for the game. The players and the passes did not look sharp. Nottingham Forest were in a low block formation. Although I like the fluid that the players had when they were rotating in positions, especially in the back, whereas Xhaka was dropping back to pick up the ball. Jorginho did the same thing. You just could not really put a player in a particular position, and it kind of gives me that a little bit of encouragement that there is a sense that these players are conditioned to understand more than their primary position. We all know how difficult it is to break down a team in this defensive stance, and on the other hand, and having players in form to have such breakthroughs or things that kind of give you that advantage. And we've had situations like that in the past. Arsenal got back into their regular ease of moving the ball into Nottingham's half, then playing around the edges, not doing much with the ball, and opponents just managed to get the ball back with a quick fast break and then put us in a very tight, heavy reactive defensive position. Yes, because of our high line press. Then we just try to deal with situations as we attempt to make our attacking presence form, but that just didn't happen. A bad pass from Odegaard, and then that leads to conceding a goal. Again, so many questions here in terms of how the team spirit, the energy, just not looking like itself. In another game earlier in the season, we will look past this because we will reset, pick ourselves back up, build into the game in this same formation nonetheless. So I think knowing where we are, closing doors to the season, it just affected the morale for the players, and that's unacceptable. At Arsenal had to look for a good response, finding themselves in Nottingham's box. It was not a game of tactics to move closer and quicker on the box, but that was not happening. Arsenal needed a dribbler to break through the lines. We've needed that so much, relied on Saka to do a lot of that, looking for different players where they had to drop deeper to pick up the ball and do something, or change some of the formations that can disrupt everything, which should keep us at least more in the build up momentum, but just couldn't find that. Just having no success there. Trossard was on the field. Trossard, we know, is a very good dribbler. He knows how to manage that. He's someone I thought was good enough to dribble past the defenders. The ball wasn't getting to him in the right place. The attackers were also kept out of the box as well. Credit to Nottingham's defending. They didn't give our players a chance to move around the box. It was just a very tough battle, and to get ourselves situated from an attacking position. A quarter in the first half, it was rather boring. Not seeing any sense of attack from Arsenal. Crosses and corners were not doing it. Jorginho and Partey tried several times to get the ball to Jesus inside the box. It just didn't survive a chance. I mean, there wasn't any good play combination that looked positive for Arsenal at this point. All the possession in the half was just that. Nottingham Forest just needed one possession to execute a heavy counterattack against Arsenal's high press, and it was just not a good reassuring look for us when we had to defend in a few situations like that. As the game went on, with Arsenal being patient to take their chance, Nottingham's low block made their final third so compact, passes coming in would easily be intercepted or challenged by double teams, and the way that they kept things real tight and in front of them. The ineffective patient passing dragged on. It was a complete flat first half. At that point, I would have expected urgency to change game plans, or have, a thought to get a different personnel to keep things a little bit fresh. It was disappointing. Second half, no change, just a bit more of energy than the first, but it was still looking all the same. Nottingham Forest, they had a close chance for a second goal, which is an indication that they had better confidence of winning this game. We had a moment of driving in the box only to pass it back out by Odegaard. I was just lost for words. Maybe for me, I'm just simple-minded in this instance where we had done nothing. We did not have shot and attempts to even create some build-up, and not having all that till this very moment. I wish, or I would have assumed or hoped that it was just simple driving shots, making it a little bit just of a simple situation, but then build it up. Because if ball possession wasn't that hard for us to claim in this game, why not do some very basic things like driving and shoot? Nothing else had worked so far, and Arsenal players they lacked the spark or something to drive them to another gear. I wish I could describe it another way. It was just another bad day for Arsenal. These passes weren't progressive. Nothing showed that they were building some momentum, or in this patient passing tactics seemed to have just looked to have had any success in any way. It reverted to flat performance in terms of playing with an intention to equalize or grow into the game. I was shocked how disconnected these players were. You would think all the quality players on the field would yield more intensity. I was looking at the midfield. I saw Jorginho getting in good spaces to pick up the ball and hold the midline to find a player, get some connections on the left, but nothing else. We're not lacking in creative players. But Jesus, from an attacking standpoint, he was getting bullied. He was getting pushed out. He was totally invincible in Nottingham's, Forest box. The build-up was so slow to add to that, because if they had any quick chance to try to do something in Arsenal in this situation, it would just be, shut down. And this is in seconds. And our slow game build was just not helping. I realized that the patient game of sudden strike that was in effect was not effective. The tempo, which could have gone up a notch, would have been much in our favor, but that didn't exist. And add to that the start-stop injury tension from Nottingham Forest players added to the frustration for Arsenal as they tried to build some momentum, if at all, like it seemed that they were. Our meaningful good chance came around the 60th minute, after dealing with scares of our own box, defending the counterattacks and the broken passes. And that was just it. I mean, that was the most we did. When we drove into their box, Saka, Odegaard, and Ketia, they got into each other's way. A lot of traffic, as I said, where they kept things really tight and compact. But to their benefit, for Nottingham Forest, the way they just clamped down and closed things out, we just could not have any chance or spaces to create something. There wasn't a breakthrough. Nottingham Forest were working harder to protect their lead, and they achieved that. We lost the game, and City were the champions. A very bitter loss. Like I said, it was more than losing this game. Most of the thought was City becoming champions early before they had even played their game. A big air of deflation. It was what I felt, and I'm sure so many other fans felt similar. And I'm just going to leave it in that feeling, nothing bigger, because we had big expectations. Yes, we can try to achieve something. In coming short, we can embrace or accept that, but with this grit, that fight, you just continue showing that. In terms of how we dealt with it, these two losses just didn't feel like we had come out of this situation. So that's what's clear. I do appreciate the away fans. We heard their voices. They have been wonderful, like just amazing in so many ways. All these away fans, away games that we've been able to experience their true spirit. It's something I continue to applaud, and I always look to tap into in every situation. In terms of my better performers, there were some who looked to have worked harder and tried to make something happen. First player, Saka, he had the most chances to drive, cross, shoot, dribble, pass, with all the heavy defense on him. As we all know, if we want something to happen, it's him, and he did his best. Second player, Jorginho, he kept getting in tight pockets to help keep the ball moving, progressing towards the edge of the box, and laying off to Odegaard and Partey to cross in or pass in for Jesus. I have seen better games from him, given how this game turned out. I thought he would relish breaking down the defensive structure, but the effect wasn't there in how the midfield was and anything that was supposed to be created from how he normally plays. Third and final player, Odegaard, high energy, and the other player trying a bit more, but the overcomplications of play just led to less shots, and I just couldn't really understand all that. Maybe instructions, perhaps, but at least I can appreciate the effort. Now, my other player today, same as last game rather, Jesus. A disappointing Jesus again. For a second time in a row, I just don't know why he was not effective, dominant, or at least disruptive. You can be anything, but at least keeping that disruption the way he normally does. It just felt like he was gone. So ineffective. Was not up for the duels and the challenges. It was mostly a situation where he tried to call a foul and he wasn't given. Maybe in some instances it should have been called, but the things that he normally would do to disrupt those defenders in that back line, Jesus just was not able to do that. And I remember how we used to see him feasting on defenders and doing these kinds of, real strong defending duels and challenges. He was just half of or less than half of what he normally used to do in games like this. And it just didn't help that he couldn't click with the other, attacking players when they had the ball trying to get to him. Again, it could be circumstance of the defendant, but at least in his own individual performance and how he can do something to affect the attack, there were no service, nothing from him, and no way to at least generate some energy. And that's truly disappointing. Folks, I truly appreciate the away fans, as I said, making the noises heard in terms of the support. Not an easy thing to do given the circumstance. It's down to the final game. Let's hope we can change the mood and maximize the good things from this team and the manager. For now, we do the same thing like we did last time and think less of this game that we just lost and just look forward to what we have for this last game. Saka, Jorginho, and Odegaard make my better players and Jesus the other player. And with that, folks, I'll wrap it here for this bite-sized episode. Until then, talk to you all later. Take care and bye-bye.